I think one of the coolest things about this era of film and television is that we're getting to a point where video game adaptations are starting to be made in high quality and are showing their viability and their effectiveness. I mean, we've seen the success of the Last of Us HBO show. We've seen Fallout absolutely nail it with their live action adaptation. Arcane, Castlevania, and Cyberpunk, these are animated but video game adaptations nonetheless, and they told compelling stories and showed amazing visuals. So we live in an era now where such things are possible, but we do get some flops every once in a while that take us back to the old days when video game adaptations were just, for lack of better words, just really trash. Like, they were just really, really, really bad. Borderlands seems to capture more the old era of video game adaptations with the rather unsuccessful, if not catastrophic, launch that we have seen for it. Recall that back in 2021, we saw a first look of it. We saw kind of the profiles and the silhouettes of the cast that they had showcased back then. And already people were skeptical because while there were familiar elements, there were definitely elements that didn't quite match what people remember from the original game. And the thing is, this Borderlands movie, it's an adaptation of the first game, and so with that comes certain expectations from the fans in terms of how the characters are supposed to look and feel, and, you know, the kind of presence and essence that they're supposed to evoke. And so already it was off to a rocky start. And then the trailer came out, and, you know, a lot of people were in wait-and-see mode, but, you know, people were divided about its potential quality. And now the movie is finally out, and ladies and gentlemen, this is about as disastrous as a movie launch can get. Let's talk about what happened first critically. On Rotten Tomatoes, when the initial reviews came out, the movie was literally at a 0% tomato meter. And this was there for a while before one positive review that was actually more of like a mixed review with one or two positive things to say about it brought that up to a 3%. And then now the final tally after 99 reviews is a 9% tomato meter, which is still, I mean, that's not a high bar to set at all. And then the audience score, while not quite as low, you can see not only just how low the numbers are, which is indication of the box office numbers. Usually by this point, you want to see thousands of reviews to indicate that a lot of people have seen this movie. But the fact that there's only 250 reviews at this stage, it doesn't bode well. But then beyond that, a 49% audience score is also far from ideal. The movie is just, it's not good. A lot of the jokes don't land, and there's not a whole lot of substance to it, and it really doesn't feel like it does Borderlands justice. It doesn't appeal to the fans, and it doesn't appeal to the mass audiences. The general vibe out there is that it's an ill-conceived film and one of those adaptations that just shouldn't have happened. Its script just didn't work, and it doesn't do enough to really justify its existence. Now, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick got wind of the abysmal reviews that this was getting. I mean, IGN itself gave it a 3 out of 10, so what does that tell ya? And the statement he put out there was, hey guys, ignore the reviews. Please give this movie a chance. See it for yourself. There have been, cases and situations where, critics really didn't like a movie, but a lot of fans ended up liking it. So maybe there was some hope there. But generally, from what I'm seeing, even fans and general audiences are like, this is just not a great film. Who knows, maybe one day it'll become a cult classic. But for now, it's bad. So Zelnick said, let's give the film a chance. A lot of people worked really hard on it. The underlying intellectual property is phenomenal. The cast is amazing. I think the look and feel is really terrific. So let's see what audiences have to say. But then he answered a question about whether this is going to have a huge financial impact on the company. He said, but no, the performance of the film wouldn't have a financial impact on us or the franchise one way or another. Speaking to IGN right before the company's quarter one earnings call, basically trying to reassure investors that even if this movie flops, us, Take-Two as a company, will be okay. Further adding that the whole business of making films out of games is not really core to us, he said, and he added that he expects the publisher will probably maintain its approach to only doing so selectively in the foreseeable future. This is definitely him trying to soften the blow. Like, if a movie like this becomes successful and it boosts sales for the games in turn, which also boosts sales for the movies, and it becomes this vicious thing, which is what happened with, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. When that released, the games also suddenly got a huge, or the Cyberpunk 2077 game got a huge uptick of players. When the Fallout show became successful, not only was the show itself successful, but it fueled the game's sales and players returning to the games as well. Same thing for The Last of Us. Like, this is actually a potentially very profitable business venture if done right. But then when you see a flop like Borderlands, that investment just doesn't pay off in the way you'd want it to. So I don't believe him when he says that it doesn't really impact us all that much. Like, yes, it does. That's a lot of potential success and potential sales of Borderlands and the brand getting bigger and it paving the road to just much more financially lucrative future for the IP. Like, those kinds of things just out the window because this movie flopped so badly. And how bad exactly did it flop? Well, we have some figures here. So apparently the Borderlands movie bombed by opening with an $8.8 million weekend. That is not just bad, that is disastrous. This is its opening weekend. These numbers are only going to go lower from there. Now, that's $8.8 million in the US. Internationally, I don't know exactly what the figures are, but reports say that 60% of the movie's production costs were covered by international ticket pre-sale. So overall figures likely look a little better, but I'm curious as to whether this will cover the overall budget of the movie, which is $115 million overall, and then on top of that, $30 million for marketing and distribution. I'm curious to see whether this movie will end up making any sort of profit or even break even, or if it'll ultimately be a net loss for the companies involved and the investors involved. And when something like this releases, it's not enough to just break even. You want this to kind of generate significant growth for an entire brand, for the games and the movie and everything surrounding this universe. But with the flop of this, this is just not going to move the needle all that much. And so long term, this is going to be a huge loss. Something else that worked against its favor is the fact that this movie was made to be a PG-13 movie, which is the last thing you'd expect Borderlands to be. It wanted to appeal to a general audience, but what ended up happening was that it ended up appealing to no one by essentially cutting down on the things that gives Borderlands its identity. It should have been an R-rated film. And then beyond that, as far as the hardcore fans are concerned, the changes that they made to the story, the way the characters were cast, the storyline aspects that aren't in line with what they expect from the game. Like, literally, this movie was made for no one by trying to appeal to everyone, by trying to dilute what makes Borderlands, by diluting its identity instead of embracing Borderlands, which is a stark contrast to something like Deadpool and Wolverine. That was the most Deadpool-ass movie you could have possibly made. They brought Wolverine in. It was as R-rated as you could get, as lewd and as gruesome as it needed to be, and it knew what it was, fan servicey as hell, jokey as hell, but it's precisely what that movie needed to be. It gave the fans what they wanted and just offered a phenomenal time for what it was. The plot and whatnot is not necessarily what you're there for. It doesn't have the most amazing plot ever, but those moment-to-moment elements were so compelling and fun and giddiness-inducing, especially for fans who recognize all the Easter eggs and all the things that they showed off that served as a love letter to the comics and the 20th century Fox era of superheroes. That movie just, everyone talks positively about it as far as I know. But then you look at something like this and it's like the complete opposite of that, where you try to take Borderlands and just make it into something it's not for the sake of trying to see if you can appeal to a broad audience. It's like, look, the audience will be there if you just give something a strong identity. And Borderlands already had a strong identity with the games having established that, and the fact that they didn't fully just lean into that. And then, just all the marketing errors that they made combined with the fact that the movie ultimately just wasn't particularly of high quality, led to word of mouth spreading about that. And this being sort of one of the major flops as far as video game adaptations are concerned. And again, we do live in an era now where video game adaptations are becoming viable, and some of the most successful releases, and some of the most critically acclaimed releases of the year, and breaking records. Like The Last of Us broke records for HBO, Fallout broke records for Amazon, and I mean Super Mario broke records when that movie came out. You can see that it's not the fault of the genre and the medium, it's the fault of just the marketing, the quality of the movie, and word of mouth spreading about this just not being worth your time and money. So that's kind of what you need to know about the Borderlands movie. Just a very unceremonious, uneventful launch overall. This was something that I talked about before, so I figured it would be full circle to just kind of revisit this, see how it's going. And honestly, this particular movie I did not have a good feeling about, and unfortunately my pessimisms just kind of became reality on this particular front. But it doesn't mean that video game adaptations should stop. They just need to be much more well considered. Either make an original story within that universe to really give you all the freedom you need, kind of like what Fallout did, or if you're going to adapt a story that already exists with a cast of characters that already exists, really do them justice and really show the fans, like, give them that love letter that they are looking for. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the Borderlands movie, its financial performance, its box office performance, and if you've seen the movie yourself, what do you think? Do you think it's as bad as a lot of people seem to be saying it is, or do you personally enjoy it more than other folks did? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.